Benjamin Harris had just been named the new co-CEO of Brightview Solutions, a tech company on the rise. But before stepping into his new role, he had one goal: to see the company's culture firsthand, especially how his managers treated others. He knew how prejudice could hide behind business suits, and he wanted to witness it for himself. So, Benjamin hatched a bold plan. He'd pose as a job applicant, disguised in a wheelchair, applying for a junior data analyst position. He wanted to experience how the hiring team treated him, knowing it would reveal the company's true nature. The day was buzzing with activity, Brightview's quarterly hiring day. The lobby was filled with hopeful candidates, nervously rehearsing their answers. Benjamin wheeled in quietly, unnoticed by most. As he waited in line, he scanned the HR team. His moment arrived when his name was called, not as Benjamin Harris, but as Larry Simmons. Cheryl Dixon, a sharp-eyed HR manager, stood waiting. She raised an eyebrow when she saw Benjamin in his wheelchair, clearly judging him. "You're here for the data analyst job?" she asked with a faint sneer. "Yes, ma'am," Benjamin replied calmly, undeterred. But Cheryl didn't seem impressed. She sarcastically asked if he even knew what the job entailed, dismissing him as unfit for the position. Her tone was cutting, full of assumptions based on his appearance. The other candidates awkwardly glanced around, but no one intervened. Cheryl didn't stop there. "Brightview isn't for people with limitations," she said with a condescending smile. She suggested he leave, and Benjamin calmly nodded and turned his wheelchair toward the door. But he wasn't leaving. He'd seen enough. Later that afternoon, Benjamin entered the company's auditorium, now dressed as himself. He stood on stage, the new co-CEO. Cheryl and the HR team were seated at the front, none of them aware of the twist coming their way. The founder, David, introduced Benjamin to the team. The audience clapped, but Cheryl's expression quickly went from smug to stunned as she realized the man she'd insulted earlier was now standing before her as her boss. Benjamin, now dressed in a sharp suit, spoke calmly but with authority. "Earlier today, I came here as a candidate to experience our hiring process. What I witnessed was far from the values I expect from this company," Benjamin said, his eyes locking onto Cheryl. "There is no room for discrimination, assumptions, or disrespect here." Cheryl squirmed in her seat, unable to look him in the eye as the weight of his words sank in. The entire HR team grew uncomfortable. Benjamin's gaze was unwavering. "To those of you who are afraid to speak up, remember, I am here to ensure fairness and integrity in this company," he continued. "And to those who don't believe in that, you should reconsider your place here." The crowd was silent, absorbing every word. David, Benjamin's brother, nodded in support and then turned to Cheryl. "Cheryl," he said, his voice stern, "please meet us in my office after this meeting." Cheryl's face turned pale. She knew what was coming. After the meeting, Cheryl entered David's office. She tried to apologize, but the tension in the room was thick. Benjamin didn't raise his voice. He simply looked at her with disappointment. David spoke first. "You didn't just reject a candidate, Cheryl. You insulted someone based on assumptions. We can't and won't tolerate that kind of behavior." Cheryl tried to justify herself, but the excuses crumbled. Benjamin continued, "I came here today to see how we treat people. What I saw was not what Brightview stands for." David added, "After careful consideration, we've decided to terminate your employment, effective immediately." Cheryl, now pale and defeated, nodded silently. Benjamin's expression remained unreadable, but the weight of the moment was undeniable. As Cheryl left the office, David turned to Benjamin. "You did the right thing." Benjamin smiled, feeling the relief of having his brother's support. "Now we rebuild," he said. we make sure this company lives up to its values. From that moment on, Brightview Solutions became a company where everyone, no matter their background or abilities, was treated with respect. The culture had changed, and so had its future, and with that, Benjamin's mission was complete.